January 28, 1945. A frozen field near St. Vith, Belgium. The air itself seems brittle, a shard of glass waiting to shatter. It smells of wet wool, diesel exhaust, and the cloying dampness of melting snow turning back to mud. This is the ragged edge of the Ardennes, a landscape chewed up and spat out by the greatest battle the U.S. Army has ever fought. And now the tide has turned. The remnants of the Wehrmacht, the broken pieces of Hitler's last great gamble, are flowing backward into the fatherland. Captain Daniel Miller of the 28th Infantry Division's Medical Battalion watches the river of gray uniforms shuffle past. He pulls his collar tighter, the cold a physical weight on his shoulders. For weeks, his world has been a chaotic triage of American boys torn apart by shrapnel, frozen by the cold, or hollowed out by combat fatigue. Now, his job has changed. He is processing the enemy. Old men with watery eyes wearing the armbands of the Volkssturm, the People's Storm. Boys, barely 16, their Hitler Youth uniforms hanging off their skinny frames, their faces a mixture of childish defiance and stark terror. You are there, standing beside him, feeling the slush seep into your boots. You see what he sees, not a triumphant victory parade, but a somber, human wreckage. A jeep from the 99th Division rumbles past, its tires slinging mud onto the prisoners' greatcoats. They don't even flinch. They just keep moving, a silent, shuffling column of defeat. Miller's medic, a corporal named Russo from Brooklyn, hands him a tin cup of coffee. It's bitter, lukewarm, but the heat is a small comfort against the bone-deep chill. "Another batch coming in from the Schönberg Road, Captain," Russo says, his voice flat with exhaustion. "Mostly support personnel this time. Clerks, cooks, a few Flakhelferinnen. Female auxiliaries. Miller had seen a few, but never this many." As the next truck groans to a halt, its tailgate drops with a metallic clang. More prisoners are herded out by a handful of weary GIs. Among them, a small group of women in the slate-gray uniforms of the Luftwaffe. They stand apart, a tight, defensive cluster, as if their proximity to each other offers some kind of shield. Miller's eyes scans them with a practiced, dispassionate gaze. He's looking for the obvious: open wounds, signs of disease, the telltale limp of a hidden injury. One woman catches his eye. She is perhaps 21, 22 at most, taller than the others, with pale blonde hair tucked severely under her service cap. While the others look down, avoiding eye contact, she stares straight ahead. Her posture is unnaturally rigid, a ramrod of discipline in a sea of sagging shoulders. Her face is a pale, porcelain mask, impossible to read. But it's the stillness that is so jarring. In this environment of constant, nervous motion, her absolute lack of it makes her stand out. She could be a statue carved from ice. He watches her for a moment longer. The way she breathes is shallow, controlled. The way she holds her hands, clasped tightly in front of her, knuckles white. It's the posture of someone enduring, someone waiting for something to pass. A truck backfires down the road, a sharp crack that mimics rifle fire. Every prisoner flinches, every GI tenses. But the tall woman? She does something different. She doesn't jump. Instead, a violent, full-body tremor runs through her, a wave of shock she instantly suppresses. Her eyes squeeze shut for a fraction of a second, and when they open again, the mask is back in place. But Miller saw it. He saw the crack in the porcelain. "Russo," he says, his voice low, "keep an eye on that one." Before the corporal can ask which one, a jeep screeches to a stop nearby. "Captain Miller, we got a bleeder. Sherman hit a teller mine a click east of here. Driver's lost a leg." Instinct takes over. The river of prisoners fades into the background. His patient, his only patient, is an American boy bleeding out in the back of a jeep. He runs, his medical bag slapping against his hip. The world narrows to tourniquets, pressure dressings, and the desperate fight to keep a heart beating. But as he vaults into the jeep, he throws one last glance over his shoulder. He sees the tall German woman stumble. It's a small thing, a barely perceptible loss of balance. She catches herself on the fender of a supply truck, her head bowed for a moment. When she straightens up, her hand is pressed discreetly against her left side. Her face, for just a second, is no longer a mask. It is a canvas of pure, unadulterated pain. Then, as quickly as it appeared, it is gone. The Jeep lurches forward, and she is lost in the crowd. The barn smells of sour earth and animal ghosts. Damp straw, rotting for decades in the cracks of the flagstones, releases a musty perfume that clings to the cold air. This is the temporary barracks for the female prisoners. A single bare bulb, powered by a sputtering generator, casts long, distorted shadows against the rough-hewn wooden walls. For Helga Schmidt, former Oberhelferin of a light flak battery near Malmedy, this is the end of the world. She sits on a pile of straw, her back pressed against the cold stone, trying to make herself small, to take up less space, to disappear. Around her, the other women are a murmuring chorus of fear and complaint. A girl from Hamburg weeps openly, her shoulders shaking. Two older women, clerks from a supply depot, whisper about their families, their voices thin and reedy. But Helga says nothing. Silence is a fortress, and she has locked herself inside. Her entire being is focused on a single, all-consuming task, controlling the thing that is coiling and uncoiling in her abdomen. It began 3 days ago, or was it 4? Time has become a blur of noise and confusion. An artillery barrage, not the distant rumble they were used to, but the screaming, tearing shriek of incoming American 155s. She remembers the flash, a brilliant, world-ending white light that seemed to bleach all color from existence. She remembers the roar, a physical force that picked her up and threw her against the concrete revetment of her 20mm gun emplacement. Then, nothing. She woke up, coughing up dust, her ears ringing, a dull ache in her side. In the chaos of the retreat, there was no time for doctors, no space for complaint. A complaint meant you were weak. Weakness meant you were a burden. And burdens, in the final desperate days of the Reich, were left behind. So she said nothing. She walked when they walked, she stood when they stood. She wrapped the agony in layers of discipline and ideological pride. The pain was a traitor inside her, and she would crush it with will alone. But the traitor is growing stronger. It is no longer a dull ache. It is a sharp, insistent presence. It feels hot, like a live coal tucked under her ribs. Every step sends a jolt through her. Every deep breath is a risk. When she was forced to eat a piece of dry American bread earlier, the simple act of swallowing sent a wave of nausea and blinding pain through her body. She knows, with a primal certainty, that something inside is broken. Something is not right. You are inside her fortress of silence now. You feel the slow, methodical rhythm of her breathing, an exercise in control she learned in the Bund Deutsche Mädel, the League of German Girls. Breathe in, hold, breathe out. Do not show weakness. Do not attract attention. The Americans are a mystery. She has heard stories, propaganda perhaps, but terrifying nonetheless. Stories of cruelty, of neglect. To be sick, to be injured, is to give them power over you. It is to become a problem they might solve in the quickest way possible. A young woman, barely 17, with fear-bright eyes, shuffles over and sits beside her. "My name is Leni," she whispers, offering a piece of her own ration, a small, waxy square of cheese. "You haven't eaten." Helga looks up the cheese. Her stomach churns. The very thought of food is a threat. She shakes her head, a single, curt gesture. "I am not hungry." Her voice is wusty from disuse, harsher than she intends. The girl flinches and retreats, wounded by the rejection. Helga feels a flicker of regret, but smothers it. Kindness is a liability. Connection is a weakness. She closes her eyes, trying to retreat deeper into herself. The memory of the explosion replays behind her eyelids. Not the sound this time, but the feeling, the sickening impact, the sensation of her insides being slammed against her own spine. She remembers a piece of twisted metal, part of the gun shield, lying beside her when she awoke. Had it struck her? She couldn't remember. There was no blood, no visible wound, just this secret, internal fire. The heavy barn door scrapes open, flooding the space with gray daylight and the sound of soldiers' boots on gravel. A guard barks an order in English, a language she doesn't understand, but the meaning is clear. They are to line up. Another inspection, another test of her endurance. She rises slowly, using the wall to steady herself. A wave of dizziness washes over her, the dim light of the barn swimming before her. For a terrifying moment, she thinks she will fall. She locks her knees, gritting her teeth until her jaw aches. The pain in her side flares, a sharp, stabbing sensation, as if a knife is being twisted. She presses her hand against it, hidden by the folds of her greatcoat. Then she hears a familiar voice, this one speaking broken, clumsy German. "Are there any sick, any wounded?" Her head snaps up. It's him, the American doctor from the collection point, the one with the tired, intelligent eyes. Captain Daniel Miller is standing in the doorway, his medical bag in hand. He is moving down the line, his bays sweeping over each woman. He is getting closer. Helga's heart begins to pound, a frantic drumbeat against her ribs. She straightens her spine, pulls her shoulders back, and composes her face into a mask of perfect, Aryan indifference. She cannot let him see. He must not see. Captain Daniel Miller moves down the line of female prisoners with an efficiency born of endless repetition. His German is functional, cobbled together from a high school textbook and the urgent necessities of a battlefield. Haben Sie Schmerzen? Do you have pain? Sind Sie verletzt? Are you injured? Most shake their heads, mumbling 9. A few point to minor cuts or frostbitten fingers, which he treats with a quick application of antiseptic or a clean bandage handed off by Corporal Russo. He is a physician trained to diagnose, to find the hidden flaw in the complex machinery of the human body. But here he is also a soldier, an agent of an occupying army. He can see the fear and mistrust in their eyes. They see his uniform, not the man. They see a conqueror, not a healer. It creates a barrier, a wall of suspicion that makes his job 10 times harder. He knows some are hiding things, nursing injuries or illnesses they believe will single them out for harsher treatment. War has taught him that silence can be as loud as a scream. He reaches the tall blonde woman he noticed earlier, Helga Schmidt. He knows her name from a captured roster. Up close, her control is even more apparent and even more unsettling. Her skin has a pale, almost translucent quality, stretched taut over sharp cheekbones. A fine sheen of sweat beads on her upper lip, a strange detail in the frigid air of the barn. Her eyes, a startlingly clear blue, meet his, but they are guarded, defiant. They reveal nothing. "Sind Sie verletzt?" he asks, his voice calm, professional. 9, she replies. The word is clipped, final, a door slamming shut. He pauses. Something is wrong. It's a feeling in his gut, a doctor's intuition honed by seeing thousands of patients. Her breathing is too shallow, too rapid. There is a subtle tremor in her hands, which are clenched into fists at her sides. And she is holding herself with a protective stiffness, particularly on her left side, as if bracing against an invisible blow. It's the guarded posture of someone with severe abdominal pain. He has seen it 100 times in soldiers with belly wounds. He gestures to her side. "You are holding yourself. Have you pain here?" Her eyes flicker for a barest fraction of a second, a micro-expression of panic. 9, she repeats, her voice a little too firm. "I am cold." It's a plausible lie. It is freezing in the barn. But Miller isn't buying it. He can see the faint, dark circles under her eyes, the exhaustion that no amount of discipline can fully conceal. This is more than fatigue or cold. This is a body at war with itself. He knows he can't force her. The Geneva Conventions are clear, and more than that, his own ethics prevent him from examining a prisoner against her will unless it's a clear medical emergency. But he is a doctor, and the first rule is to do no harm. Letting a potentially serious condition go untreated is a form of harm. He looks at Russo, then back at the woman. "Corporal, finish up here." "Fraulein," he says, his gaze locking with hers. I would like you to remain for a moment. A ripple of unease passes through the other prisoners. They glance at Helga, then quickly look away. To be singled out is to be in danger. Helga's own composure begins to fray at the edges. Her heart hammers against her ribs. This is what she feared. The attention, the scrutiny. She wants to run, to blend back into the anonymous gray mass of the group. The other women are dismissed. They file out of the barn quickly, casting nervous looks over their shoulders. Soon, the vast, shadowed space is empty except for Miller, Russo, and Helga. The silence is heavy, broken only by the hum of the generator outside. Miller takes a step closer. I am a doctor, he says, slowly, choosing his German words with care. My only duty is to help you if you are sick. Your status as a prisoner does not matter. Do you understand? Helga says nothing. She simply stares at him, her chin held high. She sees the sincerity in his eyes, but it is filtered through years of propaganda, of being told the Americans were decadent barbarians. To trust him would be to betray everything she has been taught. It would be a surrender more profound than her capture. She will not give him the satisfaction. She decides to gamble. She will simply walk away, rejoin the others. He is one man. What can he do? Stop her physically? She takes a half step toward the door, a small, defiant movement intended to signal the end of the conversation. But her body has its own agenda. It has been pushed beyond its limits, screaming for relief for days, and her single abrupt movement is the final insult. A spasm, violent and electric, erupts from deep within her abdomen. It is a pain so intense, so blinding, that it vaporizes her will. Her discipline, her pride, her fear, it all evaporates in a white-hot agony. The sound that escapes her is not a word. It is not a cry for help. It is a raw, animal noise, torn from the depths of her being, a guttural gasp of pure torment. Her hands fly to her left side, clutching the source of the fire. Her knees buckle. The world dissolves into a gray, swirling vortex as she pitches forward, her carefully constructed wall of silence shattered into a million pieces. The moment her cry echoes off the timbered walls of the barn, Captain Miller is moving. There is no more enemy, no more prisoner, only a patient in critical distress. He catches Helga as she collapses, his arm looping around her waist to break her fall. She is surprisingly light, her body rigid with pain. Corporal Russo is at his side instantly, his face a mask of alarm. Get her onto that cot, Miller orders, his voice sharp with urgency. Now. Together, they carry her to a rickety wooden frame covered with a thin, lumpy mattress of straw. They lay her down gently, but even the slightest movement makes her gasp, her knuckles white where she clutches her uniform. Miller gestures toward the door. Russo, get the others out of sight. Tell the guards no one comes in. I need privacy. Russo nods and disappears, his boots echoing as he runs. The barn door creaches shut, plunging the space into a deeper gloom, lit only by the single swaying bulb overhead. It's just Miller and Helga now. Her breathing is a series of short, shallow pants, her eyes wide with a mixture of agony and sheer terror. The control is gone. She is drowning, and he is the only one who can throw her a line. He pulls a pair of surgical scissors from his bag. I have to cut your tunic, he says in German, speaking slowly and clearly. I need to examine you. She gives a weak, frantic shake of her head, a last vestige of modesty or defiance. But a fresh wave of pain contorts her face, and she relents, her body going limp. Miller works quickly, snipping through the thick gray wool of her jacket and the cotton blouse beneath, exposing her torso. Her skin is clammy and cold to the touch, despite the fire she must be feeling inside. He begins the examination, his hands gentle but firm. Tell me what happened, he says, his voice a low, calming murmur. Was there an explosion? An accident? Through clenched teeth, she manages a few whispered, fragmented words. Artillerie. 3, 4 Tagen. Artillery. 3 or 4 days ago. Geworfen. Thrown. It's enough. It paints a horrifying picture. A blast injury. He can see no shrapnel wounds, no obvious trauma, but that's what makes it so terrifying. The real damage is on the inside. He begins to palpate her abdomen, his fingers expertly searching for clues. The muscles are like stone, a condition doctors call board-like rigidity. It's a desperate, involuntary guarding, the body's attempt to build a wall around a catastrophe. It's a classic, terrifying sign of peritonitis, a massive infection of the abdominal cavity. He works his way across her abdomen, watching her face. She flinches as he presses on the right side, but when his fingers move to the upper left quadrant, just below her ribcage, her entire body arches off the cot. A scream, thin and sharp, tears from her throat. It is the sound he has been dreading. It confirms his worst suspicion. It is the specific, localized agony of a ruptured spleen. A cold dread washes over him. This isn't just an infection. This is a massive, ongoing internal hemorrhage. The spleen, a fist-sized organ, rich with blood, acts as a filter for the circulatory system. When it shatters, it bleeds, and it doesn't stop. She hasn't just been hiding pain for 4 days. She's been slowly, steadily bleeding to death from the inside out. Her incredible willpower, the very thing that kept her on her feet, has also been masking a fatal injury. The paleness, the shallow breathing, the sweat, it wasn't just pain. It was hemorrhagic shock. He feels for her pulse. It's weak, thready, and dangerously fast. Her body is compensating, her heart beating furiously to circulate the dwindling volume of blood left in her veins. He looks at her face. Her lips are taking on a faint bluish tint. Cyanosis, not enough oxygen. She doesn't have hours, she has minutes. Russo returns, his eyes wide. "What is it, Captain?" Miller doesn't look up from his patient. He keeps one hand on her as if his touch alone can keep her tethered to life. His mind is racing, calculating the odds. The nearest field hospital with a surgical tent is 20 miles away, down roads that are little more than frozen mud, clogged with half-tracks and supply convoys. She would die on the way. There is no time. There is only here. This cold, filthy barn. And him. "Something is tearing inside," he says, the words barely a whisper. The phrase is both a literal diagnosis and a description of the horror of her situation. He straightens up, the decision made. The wariness in his face is replaced by a look of grim, absolute focus. He is no longer just a captain in the U.S. Army. He is a surgeon, and he has a patient to save. He turns to his medic, his voice now a clear, sharp command that cuts through the dim light. "Get me a full surgical kit. Now. We're doing it here." The barn becomes an operating theater from a fever dream. Russo and Miller work with a frantic, synchronized urgency, transforming the squalor into a sterile island. They shove aside hay bales and drag over a rough wooden table, wiping it down with what little alcohol they have. Russo hangs 2 gasoline lanterns from a low-hanging beam, their bright, hissing glare chasing the deepest shadows into the corners and casting their own long, dancing figures on the walls. The air grows thick with a sharp, clean smell of antiseptic fighting a losing battle against the barn's ancient dampness. Helga is drifting in and out of consciousness. Miller has given her a heavy dose of morphine, enough to dull the edges of the agony, but not enough to render her fully unconscious. They have no pentothal, no ether, no means of general anesthesia. It will be a local block, a series of injections of Novocaine into the abdominal wall, and a prayer. It is a barbaric, Civil War-era approach, but it is all they have. "Russo, get a line in her. Plasma first, then saline. Whatever we've got. We need to get her volume up before I even think about making a cut," Miller commands, his hands already moving, laying out instruments on a clean piece of canvas. Hemostats, retractors, a scalpel, suture needles. The steel tools gleam coldly in the lantern light. This is a splenectomy, a major abdominal surgery that, even in a state-of-the-art hospital, carries significant risk. To attempt it here, in a barn, on a table, illuminated by lanterns, is an act of profound desperation. You are there, a silent observer at Miller's shoulder. You feel the immense pressure settling upon him. The fate of this young woman, an enemy just an hour ago, now rests entirely in his hands. Her life depends on the steadiness of his fingers, the clarity of his mind in the face of impossible conditions. He takes a deep breath, the cold air burning his lungs, and leans over her. "Helga," he says, his voice low and steady, "you will feel pressure. You may feel some pulling. Try to stay as still as you can. Do you understand me?" Her eyes flutter open. They are glazed with pain and morphine, but there is a flicker of understanding. She gives the slightest nod. That nod is his permission, his absolution. He pulls on a pair of rubber gloves, takes the scalpel from the tray, and makes the first incision. The moment the blade cuts through the skin, the sanitized, professional atmosphere is shattered. This is not a drill. It is a brutal, intimate reality. Russo works tirelessly, sponging away the blood that immediately wells up, trying to keep the surgical field clear. Miller works deeper, through layers of muscle and fascia, his movements precise and economical. The barn is silent, save for the hiss of the lanterns, Russo's steady breathing, and the soft, wet sounds of surgery. When he breaches the peritoneum and enters the abdominal cavity, a soft gasp escapes Russo's lips. Miller's grim expression tells the story. The cavity is filled with dark, non-clotting blood. His diagnosis was correct. She has been bleeding profusely for days. It is a miracle she is still alive. Her stoicism, her sheer refusal to succumb, is the only reason she lasted long enough for him to find her. "Suction," Miller says, but they have no suction. "Russo, gauze, pack it. We need to clear this so I can see." For the next few minutes, it is a desperate race. Russo packs and removes blood-soaked gauze pads, while Miller, working mostly by feel, navigates the treacherous, slippery landscape of her internal organs. He has to find the source of the bleeding, the shattered spleen, and clamp the vessels that feed it before she bleeds out on the table. His fingers probe gently, searching for the familiar shape of the organ tucked high up against the diaphragm. He finds it, or what's left of it. It's not an organ anymore. It's a pulpy, shredded mess, a testament to the violence of the blast wave that struck her down. With painstaking care, he isolates the splenic artery and vein. He applies the clamps, one by one. The frantic bleeding slows, then subsides to a manageable ooze. A collective, unspoken sigh of relief fills the small circle of light. The immediate crisis is over. He has stopped the hemorrhage. He carefully removes the remnants of the ruined organ, a procedure that feels more like a rescue than an amputation. He then begins the long, meticulous process of cleaning the abdominal cavity and closing the wound, stitch by stitch. The tension in his shoulders begins to ease. The frantic pace slows to one of methodical repair. As he works, he looks at Helga's face. She is completely unconscious now, her features relaxed for the first time since he saw her. In the soft, flickering lantern light, she looks impossibly young, her face peaceful. The uniform, the ideology, the war, all of it has been stripped away, leaving only a vulnerable human being. He came here to fight soldiers like her, but tonight, in this cold Belgian barn, he for her. It is the core paradox of his existence, a doctor in a world committed to destruction. He places the last suture, knots it, and cuts the thread. It is done. She is stable. With luck, and a course of the new wonder drug, penicillin, she might even live. He strips off his bloody gloves, his hands trembling slightly from adrenaline and exhaustion. The war still rages outside, a storm of ire and fire. But in here, for a few precious hours, humanity, in its most desperate and compassionate form, has won.